In a polynomial, every exponent has to be a whole number. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Is A a polynomial? Yes. What is your degree? Good. Because if things are added and subtracted, you just take the highest exponent. Is B a polynomial? Why? Yes. So that x is in the denominator, you could just say that. Having an x in the denominator is like a negative exponent. We can't have that. C, is that a polynomial? No, because, right, you cannot have an exponent, that's a fraction. Is D a polynomial? Yes. Now degree is like how many variables? I don't have any, so my degree is? 0. All right, number 2. Let's work out at least one of these. Which one do you want me to work? A, B, or C?
B.
B. I can do more than one if we need to. All right, first thing, I would prompt you on the test as well and tell you, I want to know the degree. If terms are added and subtracted, you just take the highest exponent, so our degree is 3. Second thing, in behavior, it's a positive x cubed, so it is down. Does everyone understand how we get in behavior? Okay, third thing, we need our zeros. To get our zeros, it has to be factored. So if I come back up here, I could factor this. I have 2 terms. We could take out an x squared, and that leaves us with x minus 4. So if we set each to 0, what makes x squared equal 0? But because it's squared, that means multiplicity is, and what makes x minus 4 equal 0? 4. Okay, here's a quick check. If the degree is 3, you should have 3 zeros. We have 0, 0, and 4. We got all 3 zeros. All right, bounce or through. That is based off the multiplicity. If it is even, what happens? This is just a multiplicity of 1. 1 is odd, so it goes through. All right, then we have our y-intercept, which is if you put in 0 for all the x's, and in this case, we get 0. Does everyone understand how to find that information? Then we plot it. We know our graph should start down here and end up here. The zeros are where we hit the x-axis, so that's 0 and 4. I hit my y-axis at 0, so my graph starts down here. I hit at 0, and we said the graph will bounce, so that means it just comes back down. I hit at 4, and it goes through, so it looks like that. So please make corrections as we go through. You're welcome to look through this one if you can. All right. Do we need others on problem 2? Do we need A or C? Happy to work one out if you guys would like. Sure. Okay, we can come back to one if we need to. Problem 3. I will work one of these to start with. Do you want me to do A or B? Doesn't matter. Let's do A. All right, so if I want you to find the remainder, there's 2 options. You can do synthetic division, or you can plug what into the function? 2. So either you do synthetic with the 2, or you just plug 2 into the function and find f of 2. Either way, you should get the same final answer. So when we do this, I get 43 here or here. So my remainder is 43. So is it a factor? No. What does it require to be a factor? Have to have 0 for your remainder. Only thing that I really noticed on these is messing up the synthetic because you don't include zeros, so you're missing powers of x. So just be aware of that. On B, what would you plug in if you were just trying to plug in to find it? -1. All right, number 4. Do we need that one? Let's look at, I did have a few questions on 4B yesterday. Let's look at that one real quick. My zeros are 0 multiplicity of 2 and -1 multiplicity of 2. If 0 is a 0, what do we have in our function? An x. Since it was multiplicity of 2, it's squared. If -1 is a 0, what do we have in our function? X plus 1, and since it was multiplicity of 2, it is squared. So just finding that function. All right. Number 5, how many zeros would that one have? The maximum number of zeros. 8. How do we know that? Degree. Good. And then when you do your p's, q's, and possible zeros, you should get 1, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, plus or minus 1. Okay, so that's what you should have had for your answers on problem 5. Remember, the p value is the constant, so what goes into 3, so that's plus or minus 1, plus or minus 3. Q is your leading coefficient, so everything that divides 12, plus or minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. And then to get your possibles, that's when we do p's over q's. So we divided each of those. That's all question 5 asked for. I asked you to set it up, tell me the p's and q's, but you didn't have to find one that worked. Now, question number 6, here's where we start having to find one that works. So let's do one of those. Do you want me to work A or B? B it is. All right. So my function is 4x cubed minus 4x squared minus 7x minus 2. So my p values. P is from the constant. What's everything that divides 2 evenly? Q is from the leading coefficient. What is everything that divides 4 evenly? Okay. Then the possible. That's P over Q. So plus and minus 1 over 1 is 1. Plus and minus 1 over 4. Plus and minus 1 over 2. Plus or minus 2 over 1 is 2. Plus or minus 2 over 4 is a half. We have it. 2 over 2 is 1. We have it. These are the possible zeros. On the test, I would expect that. Okay, so if I just give you this polynomial and tell you to find all the zeros, you can't just magically say, here's what it is. You have to be able to show me your p's, q's, possible zeros. Now, these are the nice zeros that might work. How do I find one that does work? Plug it in. When you plug it in, what should it equal? 0. So tell me which one works. All right. So once you find one that works, just by testing them, seeing if you get out 0, now we do our synthetic division. 4 comes down, 4 times 2 is 8, same 4 is 4. Make sure you are correcting if you didn't have this the first time. When you do synthetic, your power always goes down by 1. Okay, we started with an x cubed, this is an x squared. So we have 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. What could we do now? What if this was still an x cubed? What would you have to do?
Find the GCF.
check for grouping, and if grouping doesn't work, you could find another one and do synthetic again. Okay, so this factors into x plus 2, x plus 2. Divide the 4 back. So we get 2x plus 1. They're both the same, so I could just write that as squared. Now, I asked for the factored form and the zeros. This isn't the entire factored form. What else do we need? 2 also worked, so we have to put in an x minus 2. That's my factored form. My zeros, it was an x cubed, we should have 3 zeros. So if you set each of these parentheses to 0, we get -1/2. That one worked twice, so multiplicity of 2, and x minus 2 gives me a 2. Okay, this type of question on your test would probably be at least 10 points. So make sure you can do it. I'm going to be looking. Did you tell me the p's, the q's, the possible zeros? Once you found one that worked, did you do your synthetic division and break it down? Okay. Does everyone understand what I expect on those? Okay. We will come back and do more if we have time, but I want to get through each type of question to start. So number 7. Let's do one of those. Let's do B. So I'm telling you, this polynomial has degree 4. That means there are 4 zeros. But I gave you 2 zeros. I said I is a 0 and 1 plus I is a 0. My first question was, list the remaining zeros. What else has to be a 0? One minus I. What else? Negative I. Degree 4 means there should be 4 zeros. Remember, imaginary zeros come in pairs. If an imaginary number works, so does its conjugate. Then the factored form. If I is a 0, you have an x minus I. If negative I is a 0, you have an x plus I. All right, these, sometimes some of us are getting confused. It's always x minus your 0. The only difference will be the signs. So you're going to have an x minus 1 plus I and an x minus 1 minus I. It's only the sign on the I term that's different. The rest of it's the same. Order doesn't matter. You just have to have those 4 parentheses. Question number 8. Do you want me to work A or B? A. So I want the complex zeros. Complex just means it might be a real number, it might be imaginary. What would you have to do to start this one? P's, Q's, possible zeros. So my P's, those come from the constant. What's everything that goes into 20?
1, 20, 4, 5, 10, 2.
Q is my leading coefficient, so only 1. So possible zeros, P over Q, so each of those numbers over Q. Now, remember what this gives us. These are the nice numbers that might work. Okay, it doesn't give me the imaginary numbers, it doesn't give me things with radicals, it's just a list of the nice ones that could work. How do we find one that does work? We plug it in. When we plug it in, we are looking for one that equals 0. So, what works? 2. So you plug them in until you find it, and then we do synthetic. So if 2 worked, we'll do synthetic with that one. So 1 comes down. Okay, so we get x cubed minus 2x squared plus 5x minus 10. All right, at this point, can you factor that one nicely? Okay. Yesterday I did know a couple people did use grouping at this point to factor it, which is fine. But if you don't think about grouping, what can we do? Okay, we go back to our list of possible zeros. We're plugging them in here, and we find one that works. What works? 2. Okay, so you can do synthetic again. Or if you did factoring by grouping at this point, that is totally fine. So this gives me x squared minus 5. If you'd done grouping, you get to the same point. You take out an x squared from the first one, take a 5 out of the second one. Okay, we're going to get to the same answer. It's a plus 5. Okay. So my directions here, I need the zeros and the factored form. My zeros. If I set x squared plus 5 equal to 0, and x squared is equal to negative 5, square root plus and minus, what's the square root of negative 5? Okay, it was originally x to the 4th. There should be 4 zeros. I have 2 of them. What are the other 2? Two. Didn't I do synthetic with 2 twice? So how would I write that? 2 multiplicity of 2. The factored form. Okay, if I radical 5 is a 0, that means you have an x minus I radical 5. We have x plus I radical 5. And 2 works, so x minus 2 squared. I did see a few people that left it as x squared plus 5 and x minus 2 squared, which I would also accept. Mostly that was people that had done grouping that got to that point. So I would take either of those for your factored form. But remember, zeros are just the numbers. Factored form has the x with it. All right. Is that one okay? Let's talk about problem 9. So I gave you a polynomial, and I gave you one of the zeros. All right, are we fixing any mistakes as we go through? Doing okay? If 2i is a 0, what do we do? Okay. This is where we started having problems. 1 times 2i is 2i. If we add those, we get negative 4 plus 2i. So now I have to do 2i times negative 4 plus 2i. If we distribute, that gives me a negative 8i plus 4i squared. What is 4i squared? So those cancel, and we just have negative 8i. So now I have 2i times negative 8i, which is negative 16i squared, which is 16. All right, this is fairly ugly, but what do I do now? If 2i works, so does its conjugate, negative 2i. So 1 comes down, 1 times negative 2i is negative 2i. That gives me negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 2i is 8i, and that gives me 0. So this is x minus 4. My question here was the remaining zeros. So that means give me the rest of them. The only one I told you was 2i. So we knew negative 2i. And what makes x minus 4 equal 0? 4. Now, what if you really, really struggle doing synthetic division with these i's? Okay, so you're on the test, I give you a problem like this, and you mess up your synthetic with 2i. Is there any other way you could get your zeros of this? Could you go back and do p's and q's to find your real zero first? Absolutely. So if you know that you mess up the synthetic with the i's, don't use the fact that I gave you that zero. Go back and do p's and q's, and you'll get to the same answer. Okay? All right, problem 10. Let's talk about these. These were the problems that we did on Tuesday. So a couple of you were gone then. Probably a good idea for us to look at those. All right, if I ask you to find the solutions, these are just solving different equations. What would we do for the first one? Grouping. So we could take x squared out of the first one, replace this with 5x minus 1. Take 2 out of the second one, so 5x minus 1. They both have 5x minus 1, so you take that out. Use this with x squared plus 2. Then you just set those equal to 0. So 5x minus 1 is equal to 0. We get 1/5. X squared plus 2 equals 0. Square root plus or minus. What's the square root of negative 2? Plus or minus I radical 2. It was an x cubed, so we should get 3 answers, and we did. We got 1/5, I radical 2, and negative I radical 2. Right. On problem B, you first need to get this equal to 0. What could you do now? Slip and slide. Let's do one thing before it's slip and slide. Take out x. So if we slip and slide, what's left? Factors in x minus 9, x minus 1. Divide the 3 back. So we have x times x minus 3 times 3x minus 1. So if we set those equal to 0, what do we get? 0, 3, and 1/3. X to the third, so we get 3 answers. Right. On C, if I subtract over my 6x squared, what do I do now? Back to that. X to the fourth would break into? What multiplies to 5 and adds to negative 6? Okay, so you can try to factor further from here, or you can just set them equal to 0. So you get x squared equals 5, square root plus or minus, plus or minus the square root of 5. You set x squared minus 1 equal to 0, then x squared is equal to 1, square root plus or minus, and square root of 1 is 1. So it was x to the fourth, we got 4 zeros. Square root of 5, negative square root of 5. 1, negative 1. All right. questions on that one? Okay. Let's take a look at the last two. All right, problem 11. Using the graph to answer all these questions. The minimum possible degree. Degree is the power. So we have to ask ourselves, what power does this have to be? First of all, can you tell me, is it an even or an odd power? Even, because both ends are going the same direction. If we look at this, we have 3 turning points. So what would my degree have to be? 4. The degree has to be higher than your turning points. Okay, local mins. Local means it doesn't have to be the lowest on the entire graph. It's just lower than the points on either side of it. So what minimum do we have? MN. Local max. Which points are higher than the points on either side? 2 of them, both AB and ST. All right, absolute means on the entire graph. What is the single lowest point on this entire graph? There is none. Because it's going to negative infinity, there is not a single point that is the lowest. So we usually just say none. Absolute max. What is the single highest point on this graph? All right, domain. As I go from left to right, this graph keeps spreading out, so what's my domain? Range is referring to my y's. You go small to large, so it's coming from, and it stops right here. Range is the y. What's the y value? B. We do hit that point, so B gets a bracket. Bracket means equal to. All right. Questions there? Number 12 says find a cubic polynomial to match this graph. So we are trying to write our equation. Start with our zeros. This one hits the x-axis at -2. So what has to be in my factored form? But it bounced. We hit it and bounced off. So that means, okay, the next place we hit is 3. So that means we need, there is one other thing we can add to this. This one hits the y-axis down here. That's the point 0, -3. What does that y-intercept allow me to find? Remember when we did like the number in front? We called it A. There could be a number in front of this. So when my x's were 0, the whole thing had to equal -3. So -12a is equal to 3. If I divide by -12, we get a -1/4. So the exact equation should have a -1. Oh, it should be a positive 1/4, shouldn't it? I dropped my negative right there. Positive 1/4 in front. Okay. Find all real zeros. I didn't give you the first 0. If I don't give you the first 0, what am I expecting you to do? P's and Q's. P comes from the constant, so everything everything that goes into H would be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4, plus or minus 8. Q is the leading coefficient. That's a 1x cubed, so everything that goes into that, plus or minus 1. Possible, P over Q, so each of my P's over 1, so we get plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4, plus or minus 8. All right. Any questions so far? Right, so now what do we do? Plug them in until 1 equals 0. What makes it equal 0? So we get x squared minus 2x minus 8. So this would factor into x minus 4, x plus 2. My factored form, this is part of it. What else do we need? Okay. What makes x minus 4 equal 0? What makes x plus 2 equal 0? All right, but this was x to the third, so there should be 3 zeros. What am I missing? Yes. 1 worked for my synthetic, so we need an x minus 1, which means 1 is also a 0. All right. What else? Can be a question on the study guide or something else that you want me to